Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, earlier today, I did a live stream with the sentencing of these two monsters. Today is the last day that I have to mention their names, or that I will be mentioning their names. John GF, Jamie Varley, who murdered little Preston, who in their care, not only that, tortured him, sex abused him. Just the vilest of the vile. You don't get any worse than these two, do you? Anyway, then I had to break away. Well, the judge went off, didn't he, to deliberate the sentence. We heard from, the victim impact statements, from Preston's biological mum, Sarah, his biological dad, Gary, the foster parents, the Coopers. We heard from the the prosecution asking for a whole life tariff. Hadn't even occurred to me before that. Of course, Varley, all the ingredients were there for a whole life tariff. I'm surprised, I just didn't think of it. GF, he's different matter, of course, his charges are not murder. So then the judge went off to deliberate his sentences. I had to go and take my son to work. I come back to the best full news, really. You can't describe any of this as good news, can you? Because it's, it doesn't bring Preston back. But this twonk, Varley, he's been given a whole life order. A whole life order. So he is never, ever going to come out of prison. Never, ever. Wonder if he's vomiting and crying for his mum now. It's just a brilliant sentencing. But anyway, I haven't even got to see what John GF has got. I mean, in my eyes, he's just as bad as Varley. He's just lucky it wasn't after his abuse that Preston died. It was after the other guy's abuse. But it could have been after his abuse or after both their abuse. They're both as bad as each other. The evil shines out of their eyes, in my opinion. And of course, we found out then this morning that Varley, I want to know, what are these other pictures that he's got on his phone that they've decided to not show or not tell? Well, we don't want to see them, but we want to know what they are. Extreme pornography Varley had on his phone. We're not going to find out what that was. Why not? Everybody should know all the details of what this vile monster had on his phone. Why was he ever allowed to adopt a baby? In his own admission, neither of them had any experience with babies, for fuck's sake. Apart from the sex side of things, they were incapable of looking after a gerbil, a hamster, a goldfish, and they were entrusted with this tiny little precious, beautiful, healthy, bouncy, happy little boy. And in short 4 months, what they did to him. Anyway, right, so I'm going to go, let's have a look, because as I haven't read the whole thing yet, literally just walked. So at 12:18 UK time, the defendants came back to court, and His Honour Mr. Justice passed sentence. And this is what he said. I mean, I don't think I've got a video. I don't think so. Let's see. Anyway, let me read it out. The judge says, Preston was 13 months old when he was murdered by you, Jamie Varley, on the 27th of July 2023. Over the previous 4 months, you and Mr. John McGowan Fazakerley had been responsible for his care as his adoptive parents. 3 days ago, following a trial lasting over 6 weeks, you were both convicted unanimously by the jury on an indictment containing 28 counts. 28 counts relating in different ways on different occasions to your unremitting abuse on Preston. Hey, Jacqueline. Yeah, it's a good result. It's a good result. I mean, better result would have been that he never would have had to go to him in the first place. The judge continues, you had been together as a couple, 2020, registered as prospective adopters. On March the 9th, 2023, you were approved. How were they ever approved? No experience with babies. Preston had been born on the 16th of June 2022 and was promptly placed in the care of experienced registered foster carers, and that was the Coopers. Preston was going to be their last. Remember, they said earlier in their victim impact statements they were going to retire from fostering after Preston. He was going to be their last foster child. But now, because of what's happened to Preston, they've continued on because they just, they were offered 3 siblings and they didn't want to think that they might go to someone else who might hurt them. So they took them as, they've continued fostering. So you were put in the care of experienced registered foster carers, both who read statements telling of the impact of Preston's death on them. Statements have also been read by Preston's birth parents. And of course, that was so tragic because you've got Preston's birth mum, with her terrible past that I genuinely feel for her. What she did or she did, the question of whether she did it or not, commit terrible, terrible crime herself, but she was only 13. I mean, what's this guy's excuse? This guy's in his late 30s. Look what he's done. And he's a teacher, you know what I mean? I'm not sticking up for Preston's mum for what she did because it was terrible. But she's got to live with that like she's got to live with this. So my heart does bleed for her for that. And then Preston's biological dad, Gary, he gave his victim impact statement. He never even met Preston. He adds that the impact on all have been devastating. Thing is, the impact, not only on them, on society as a whole, on the jury, on the judge, on everybody who's had to deal with this horrible case. The judge continues, Preston spent his first night with you on March the 31st, 2023. You, Jamie Varley, were the primary carer. You, John McGowan Fazakerley, were out at work, but taking active care during evenings and weekends. Unfortunately, Preston was restless at nights, otherwise he was as a dream to care for. If you don't know that babies wake up a lot during the night, you shouldn't be adopting a baby, should you? Also, of course, Preston, of course, he would have been unsettled, even more unsettled than when he was with the foster parents. He's been in one household with a woman and a man and children. And now he's in this household with just 2 men. It must have felt a different house. I mean, He was only a little baby, but he's old enough to know when things feel different. Also, they tortured him really sadistically right from the minute he went there. He was just a little plaything. They didn't. How was it not spotted that they didn't give a shit about him? How? How couldn't it, this is social workers, it's their profession. Surely they can sniff out bad uns. Well, if they can't, they're in the wrong job. They are definitely in the wrong job. They are at fault for this as well. They're not seeing the signs. Whereas there were that many red flags, it could have been in Red Square, Moscow. You began to complain that he was not sleeping and it was having an impact on your relationship. Just tell Davey what you think. Not going to have an impact on relationship. I do not doubt your professional background as a teacher, and your charm and easy manner did much to reassure professionals all was okay when clearly it was not. You can just imagine him, can't you? He's one of those men. Uh, like he's like, he's coming over this sort of, I don't know, respectable, all these things that he's all image. Remember, the police said, the detective in charge of the case said they wanted a baby to fit in with their Instagram lifestyle. It's all about appearances with these two men. Preston might well have been a Gucci handbag or a bloody designer t-shirt for all that they cared about him. You took the first indecent images of Preston. I will not descend into unnecessary detail. Yeah, the time for details has gone now. We don't need to, we've heard it all. We don't want to hear all the details again. Hi, Lily. Hi, Jacqueline. I can't remember if I said a to you or not. Sorry. Jamie Varley took 2 pictures of Preston in the bath with bruises on his forehead. So, right then, April the 19th, he already had bruises. This was the first of a number of photos showing bruises. Even in the context of babies learning to crawl and sustaining bumps and bruises, there is no doubt through the number and location these were non-accidental. Post-mortem bruises were found on Preston's head, both legs, back and arms. The judge tells GF he is guilty of allowing the death of a child and child cruelty. You, Jamie Varley, are guilty of physical, psychological. On May the 20th, he had a seizure, the judge says. His condition was attributed to a chest infection, but 2 bruises raised safeguarding concerns, which were the police. Nobody did anything. You gave the reason that Preston had started crawling, and the bruises were because of him bumping his head. On June the 15th, you, John McGowan for Zachary, were late from work. You, Jamie Varley, took out your frustration on Preston. You took a video of the chilling act of sleep deprivation and you sent it to GF, who must have formed a clear view of what you were prepared to do to Preston. God. Good. You tell him, Judge. Yeah, it's like he is sending that photo to GF to say, look, you better get home now or look what I'm going to do. God, They use that baby like some sort of stress ball. Oh my God. The judge says a further video later shows Preston very unwell. Yeah, he was gasping for breath on the bed. And Varley reported to GF he'd had a seizure. I'm sure that was caused by your abuse, he says. He had a broken arm due to abuse. He continues, on June the 30th, he had a temperature and rash and he was vomiting. A nurse again noted bruising. God, how many red flags? You showed a video of Preston pulling a toy box onto himself, but that can have not caused the bruises because that had been taken 2 weeks earlier. Let me just, sorry, I've got to just get this up on my phone as well, so then I can read the chat at the same time. I don't want to miss people coming into the chat. I want to say to everybody, not only who's in the chat or who's watching, thank you, for caring about Preston. Thank you for being with me through this horrible, horrible case. On July the 6th, Preston was taken with a fracture to his arm. You gave a variety of explanations, but you and Jamie Varley have been convicted of GBH. While Preston had his arm in a cast, you told a friend, his friend needs bloody sorting out as well. So, I just want to say, imagine your friend who's a doctor comes to you and say having harmful thoughts about the baby relating to drowning or suffocation. That's what Varley's friend testified that Varley said. That was it G, her name is it Gillian G or something, having harmful thoughts relating to drowning or suffocation. But you know what? You let this baby down as well. If you're watching, you should have gone. If my friend came to me and said, I don't know who, maybe the social services, because don't forget they were adopting this baby. It wasn't their biological baby. So you think you could go to the doctor or something, but you would do something. And John GS said she didn't even tell him. I don't know what the truth is there. Did she approach him? Maybe you might approach the person's partner and say, look, whether they're going for time, I'm really worried about them. You tell somebody. You went on to say you were not going to act on those thoughts. Well, yes, I'm not going to do anything, but I feel like drowning or suffocating my baby, but I'm not going to do it. You wouldn't even say it. On July the 23rd, 2023, only 4 days before Preston's death, it was a Sunday. You were both at home. Jamie Varley took 7 images showing Preston draped over the bars of his cot with his neck in direct contact with the bars. So don't forget the judge and the jury, etc. They have seen these photos. We've heard the descriptions of them, and that's bad enough, isn't it? Scary enough. But imagine you would never get that image out of your head. Dr. Gifford said that Preston's lips were blue and he looked like he needed resuscitating. But John GF said he was making a roast dinner downstairs and Jamie called him upstairs and he just took one little look at him and said, oh, what's he like? Put him down, lie him down. And off he went back to finish off the roast dinner. Funny that he reminds me so much of Maxine in the Ian Huntley case. You know, the two little girls, Holly and Jessica, murdered by Ian Huntley. Maxine Carr, John GF. He reminds me so much of her. She was going on about a roast dinner, wasn't she? When she was being interviewed by the police, she was giving all this detail about, peeling the potatoes and doing this and doing that. There's something about roast dinners that killers obviously like, or abusers, and that it turned out she was lying. John GF is definitely lying, and I think he is lucky to get away with not being charged with murder, personally. You do not need medical training to realise this is an alarmingly dangerous position. Obviously, yeah. You see your baby like that, you're not going to just go back down and finish off making the roast dinner, are you? You, John McGowan Fazakerly, witnessed this, and rather than laying Preston down to rest, you took part in a joint SCX assault. So this is what they're saying. They both assaulted him that day, that poor little baby. His lips were turning blue due to lack of oxygen, forming the basis of the charges of SEX assault. Don't forget as well, there was a load of dribble coming out of his mouth, or was it dribble? Also, John GF's DNA from SEMEN was found in the cot. The judge says, at around 4:30 on the same afternoon, you, Jamie Varley, took a picture of Preston's bottom, which appears abnormal. This is evidence of the assault by penetration. The following day, at 7:30 a.m., you, John McGowan Fazakerly, had left for work. You, Jamie Varley, set up your phone to record Preston alone in the bath. This video shows him floundering around and losing his balance. No one, let alone an adoptive parent and teacher, could watch this and not realise the obvious cruelty. Remember, he said during the trial, oh, well, yeah, looking back now, it does look, I should have done this up, but I didn't mean any harm. I was literally just round the corner. 14 minutes. That baby was left alone in the bath, whimpering, crying, scared, slipping. And Varley thought it was hilarious, I suppose. July 27th was the day of Preston's murder, the judge says. You, Jamie Varley, were alone at home with Preston. At 4:35 p.m. he was having a seizure. You videoed it. I'm sure it was caused by your further abuse. His lips were again blue. He'd never had a seizure until he went to live with these two men. And they're abusing him. And, these are only the times we know about. No doubt there were other times. The expert says he must have stopped breathing for 45 seconds or so, and he seemed to take no breaths for 15 seconds. He was clearly in need of medical attention, and I'm sure the reason you did not seek it was because of what you had done to him. Your abuse that afternoon resulted in further injuries to Preston's pelvic organs. Found in post-mortem. They were not causative of his death, but they show SEX assault. You, Jamie Varley, say he made a full recovery of the seizure when you put him in the bath and left him oh yeah, so let's not forget, supposedly he's had a seizure and he goes and puts him in the bath on his own. You left him alone in the bath seat, the judge says. There was no evidence of drowning, that be, and the Home Office pathologist formed the conclusion he died from acute upper airways obstruction. I'm sure it was your PENIS or other hard object that the bruising to Preston's throat. You were the only person with Preston that afternoon, Jamie Varley. You did this. You murdered him. The judge tells the court that at 6:15 p.m. McGowan Fazakerley returned home, but it was too late to save him. That boy, he said that when he arrived home, he was sat up. He wasn't. He was already dead. He was taken to hospital but pronounced dead later that evening. But he was definitely already dead. Remember, we looked at the photo? This to me is probably the most chilling photo that we've seen. When they took him, I've still got it here, haven't I? Look, when they took him to the hospital, that baby is dead already. They said he was floppy. He wasn't floppy, he was deceased, he died. And he didn't only die because of the SEX attack. I think what's especially even more upsetting is if they would have took him for immediate medical attention, he could have been saved. But the trouble is they waited so long because Varley was so scared of what would get discovered, what he'd done to that child. He didn't take him till he was already dead. So it was too late. It was too late. Hey, Louise. Louise, it's a very good sentence. Good. For Varley, I don't know what John GF's is yet. I haven't got as far as that. Varley's got a whole life tariff. Whole life tariff, Louise. It couldn't have a better sentence. I know it doesn't bring Preston back, but I think it is proper justice for Preston. It reflects the seriousness. And also it shows this man up for the liar. Remember him then? We saw the video of him. He's like screaming for his mom. Mom, I've effing killed him. I've done this. I'm going to hell. All those things he said on that day, they're true. He did effing kill him. He is going to hell. In fact, I'm going to put my hell emojis up. I'm going to put my hell in. Oh, I can't. And if you're watching, you remember, try and put your hell emojis on because they're going to hell. Yeah, he was crying. He's got his Rupert the Bear pajama bottoms on. He's got his Jurassic Park t-shirt on. This is a man in his late 30s who adopted a baby, who's supposed to be responsible enough to adopt a baby. I'll never understand how he was allowed to do it, to be honest. I'm like speechless about that. How were they ever allowed to adopt a baby? Anyway, so the judge tells the court that at 6:15, GF returned home. It was too late to save Preston. He was taken to hospital but pronounced dead. Thank you, Lily, for the help. That's where they're going. Yeah, going to jail, going straight to hell. Thank you for the emojis. The judge continues. Judges do not exercise you, Jamie Varley. There is only one sentence for murder, which is life imprisonment. However, I'm required to determine a minimum term, if there is to be one, before you can apply for parole. Where the court considers the seriousness of the offence or adult is a whole life order. A whole life order. Wow. You know, it was mentioned this morning, and the judge has obviously taken it into consideration. This little angel, that's the word. It's the harshest sentence Varley could receive, and it's the exact sentence that he deserves. Remember these interviews. So this was the first interview just after Preston died, and he was crying and, oh, he was just a clumsy baby. He was just a clumsy, I can't believe it's that, you know, all like that. Then a year later, when he thinks he's got away with it, because don't forget, no charges were brought for a year. So he's thought he's got away with it. He's gone off, he's changed his look. They've changed their address. He's grown facial hair. He's got his sun-kissed Ibiza look with his suntan and his long hair with the blonde streaks that he kept tossing back like some diva. And also in that interview where he had the long blonde hair and everything, he was yawning. He was yawning during the interview. It's so boring after having to be here talking about this blooming baby. God, it was a year ago now, for God's sake. I've moved on. You know, it's like, why are you still asking me about this? Yawning in the interview. Psychopath. And also arrogant, being aggressive towards the police, as if it was the police that had done this to Preston. Telling the police that were interrogating him, oh, you seem you seem obsessed with Preston's genitals. He's the one that took all the photos of Preston's genitals, and he's trying to turn it round onto the detectives because he did not like being challenged. He couldn't believe he'd been brought in again. He thought he'd got away with it. Him and John GF, they spent a little time apart, didn't they? 2 weeks, I think it was, and they moved back in together. So they'll have moved back in together. They'll been having sex again, you know, doing whatever they're doing in their depraved, revolting lives. Because, yeah, let's not forget the extreme porn that was found on his phone, that in a locked folder that we're not even getting told about what was on that. But rumours are there was bestiality on that. Wouldn't surprise me, would it? This man's capable of anything. So, yeah. What else did the judge say? So, while the court considers the seriousness of the offence or combination is exceptionally high, the appropriate starting point for an adult is a whole life order. Cases that would normally fall within this include the murder of a child, if involving sex or sadistic motivation. I am sure you're seeing his face and the gist to him. The facts of the case must leave the court in no doubt the offender must be kept in prison the rest of their life. A whole life order is a sentence of last resort for cases of the most extreme gravity, reserved for a few exceptionally serious cases. If a judge is in any doubt, the minimum term is likely to be the appropriate disposal. So he's obviously in no doubt. So in your case, Jamie Varley, not only the circumstances of Preston's murder are to be taken into account, but also the offences leading up to it over the previous months. The seriousness of your offending is exceptionally high, even in the general context of murder. And the appropriate starting point is a whole life order. Aggravating features are Preston was particularly vulnerable, not just a child, but a baby. Both mental and physical suffering was caused. There was a gross abuse of trust placed in you as adoptive parents. Guilty pleas would have been relevant, but this could not be advanced. No, because he didn't even plead guilty. I accept you did not intend to kill Preston, despite the fact it was almost inevitable your assault would cause really serious injury. So this was something I was concerned about when it was, when the case was being tried. Murder, normally insinuates an intent to kill. I don't think he meant to kill Preston on that day. Oh no, he had a lot of years ahead of him of abuse. He was enjoying having Preston there, in the sense of, oh yeah, he had a little plaything. It's like a special sex toy that he had that he could use whenever he felt like it, and use it to get to John GF about. Probably they used Preston together, like they'd got him in Ann Summers or something. It's disgusting. But yeah, he probably did not mean to murder him on that day. So I was worried, would they get a murder verdict, but it did come up. Your assaults fall into a pattern of repeated and persistent abuse. You are of good character, however. That is one of the factors that led to earlier suspicions of your abuse being overlooked by professionals. Well, if he would have been, not been a teacher, a professional, etc., well, one, they would never have been given Preston to adopt, would they? But they could have, Preston could have had a much more rough and ready family that wouldn't have treated him like that would have given him love, like his own parents, for example. They're obviously not perfect. They've got their history and everything, but at the end of the day, they would have given him more love than these twonks did. But they got him because they put on a good surface. And also, I think they got him because they're a gay couple. And I think Oldham Council needs to look at did they want to tick a box? Oh, look how woke we are as a council. We're giving babies to gay couples. That shouldn't be the criteria. The criteria is, I don't care that they're gay, but can they look after a baby? And the answer is no, because they've never had any experience, according even were they deemed appropriate. So the judge said, balancing the aggravating and mitigating features, I'm satisfied a starting point of a whole life order is necessary. Oh my God. It's brilliant. It is good. This is a case of the utmost gravity. You will stay in prison for the whole of your life. You will never be released. And the judge says Val is convicted of 2 charges by assault by penetration. Preston was particularly, I can't believe you can put those all, how can you get charged of penetration of a baby? You know what I mean? It just doesn't compute in my head how those words can go together. The acts of abuse would be dangerous on each occasion because Preston was particularly vulnerable due to his extreme youth. This was gross abuse of trust, and you recorded an SEX image of the injury. What twat? And for that, he gets 19 years. No purpose will be served by making an assessment of dangerousness, as you will be in prison for the rest. Then, of course, he was convicted 5 counts of cruelty. You subjected Preston to prolonged, persistent cruelty, neglect, sadistic behaviour. You exposed him to a high likelihood of psychological, developmental and emotional harm. Yeah, so even if this poor baby would have actually survived the abuse, what would it have done to him? On the GBH charge, the judge says Preston was vulnerable due to age and circumstances. It was committed in a domestic abuse context. There was an abuse of power and trust. As for the indecent images charges, the judge says no extra penalty will be handed to Varley given he's got whole life order. So the judge tells Varley in conclusion, your total sentence is that of a whole life order. Now, let's go on to the other one. I've got a bad feeling about that. He's not going to get a big enough sentence, I don't think, this one. But anyway. GF. The judge moves on to sentence John GF for allowing the death of a child. Your culpability involves serious neglect of Preston. You failed to take any steps to protect him. You have no previous convictions and are of good character. Yeah, remember, not even a parking ticket, twats. I will take this as the lead offence alongside the cruelty charges, and he handed him a sentence of 18 years. Now, we'll find out in a minute, is that going to be his total sentence? 18 years? I was hoping for 20 for him. Obviously, he's not been charged with murder, so he wasn't going to get a life sentence. But anyway. Then he's also given 8 years to run concurrently for child cruelty. The judge says this involves serious neglect giving rise to a risk of psychological, developmental and emotional harm to Preston over a long period. He says the sentence is 8 years to run concurrently. Concurrently, that means at the same time, doesn't it? Additional 7 years for sex abuse. And this is 7 years consecutive. 7 years, is that all you get for raping a baby then? 7 years. Is that it? Now it says this is consecutive. So I always get, so which is concurrent means the same time. So consecutive means afterwards, does it? So is he going to do his 18 years and then another 7? Ah, yeah. Your good character is a very modest mitigating factor. I can't believe that you can RAPE a baby and only get 7 years. What the fuck? There's people in prison for robbery who get bigger sentence than that. Is that what a baby's worth? 7 years? Anyway, at least it's consecutive. Your egregious behaviour on this day falls for a consecutive sentence. I mean, he's bound to have done it more than that once. That's the only time he's got caught for it. On the cruelty charge, he says it is a high culpability case involving gratuitous degradation of Preston and hands him a concurrent sentence of 6 years. So that's in his 18 years. So I think so far we're up to 25 years, are we, total? Yeah. So the total sentence for GF is 25 years. He was served 2/3 in custody and released on licence. 2/3. Right, I'm shit at maths, so what's 2/3 of 25? No, he's not going to do 20 years, is he? Then he's going to be released on licence. If he makes it that long, of course, will he make it? Make it without being attacked or something happening to him? So he's got 25 years. So the judge pays tribute to the dignity and restraint shown by everyone in court. Yeah, because that is a hell of a case. I'm going to put Preston's picture back up. That's a hell of a case for everybody to go through. I think it's just affected so many people. But of course, you know, the people who gave the people who gave their victim impact statements, they're the ones. Hi, David. Yeah, very good. You couldn't get a better sentence for Varley, could you? I'm disappointed for John. The problem is, you know, his charges were a baby because he's 7. You'll only get 7 years. Bloody ridiculous. Go out and rob a bank. Go out and rob a bank, and you'll get, you know, life sentence probably. I think not what people do in the long sentences that people get for robbery and things. And but you can let 7 years to RAP a baby. Something wrong in our society, in my opinion. Anyway, he pays tribute to the dignity and restraint shown by everyone in court during an extremely challenging and difficult emotional experience. He also thanks the jury and the legal team. Don't forget he's excused the jury from jury service for the rest of their life. Do jury service again. So, I wonder if I get... So, media gathering outside court statements expected. I might be able to find... Right. Let's see what I can find. Amy Fenton. Dozens of press and public outside Preston court after Jamie Varley was given a whole life order for murdering Preston Davey, and John GF was jailed for 25 years for allowing his death. Right, let's see if I can, maybe on Sky News, there will be a video or something. Yeah, thank you, David, for the... I mean, it is a sentence, you know, doesn't bring this beautiful, does it? I don't know. Sky News, and have some videos on there. Oh, is this a video? Yeah, I've got a statement. Is it? And, you know, I need to spare a thought for Varley's family, really, and GF's family. How do they feel about all this? I wonder, you know, how would you feel that you imagine your own son has been given a whole life order for these terrible things? I just can't imagine it. Let's have a look at the statement by the police. I mean, there'll be lots of statements today and over the next few days. I do want eventually just to move away from, not from Preston, I'd talk about Preston forever, but move away from what these horrible men did to him. So I suppose today's the last day. Yeah, I agree, David. You know, you think if it would have been your son, God forbid, wouldn't you, you know, have something to say, like to apologize for the family or something? You know, but we've seen with Stephen Stearns, look at his parents. feeling sorry for him. I could do. Listen, I would probably still love your son, wouldn't you? I don't know. They were obviously close because he was crying for his mum, wasn't he, at the hospital, even in his late 30s. So there, and you don't, at the end of the day, your son's your son. But I think that doesn't mean to say you can't come out and say, look, I apologise for everything my son's done. Let's have a look what the police said.
Varley is an evil and monstrous individual who sexually, physically and mentally abused a vulnerable baby for his own sadistic pleasure. It was this abuse that ultimately led to little baby Preston's death. I struggle to imagine the horror that Preston endured in his short life.
Oh, sorry, is that Preston's biological dad, Gary, there behind him, I wonder?
McGowan Fazakerley did nothing to help Preston and instead committed his own sexual assault against him. While no sentence will ever be enough for what these truly wicked men did to an innocent child, I welcome those handed down to them today by the judge. I hope it gives some comfort to those who love Preston that both Varley and McGowan Fazakerley will be behind bars for a significant period of time.
Yeah, I think that might be Preston's bio dad there behind. But right, let's see if there are any other actual videos. Yeah, even the policeman's voice is breaking because this would be horrible for everybody concerned, won't it? Be just awful. I wonder if his mum Sarah will make a statement because I think it's very difficult for Sarah because of her own. And as I've said, you can't pretend it didn't happen. What Sarah did, she did it, and no one can bring Lily back either. That she, did such a terrible thing too, and we can't forget that. But still, my heart does break for her. I think. Just not up to me to judge her. I don't know. Just literally takes a lot to make me speechless. But I have been speechless over this whole thing. It's just horrible. Right, let's see. Apparently he's full of himself. Jamie was full of himself. There'll be lots of things. I'm just going to the Lancashire Police News homepage. Yeah, it's just reiterating. This homepage is saying about Jamie Varley was given a whole life order, and this means he'll stay in prison for the rest of his life. His partner, 32, was found guilty of causing or allowing a child's death, 2 child cruelty offences and a single sex assault. He was sentenced to 25 years, of which he will have to serve 2/3. Preston Davey was born at Wythenshawe Hospital on 16th of June. And he went to emergency foster care 5 days later, and for the first 9 months of his life with his foster carers, he was described by health professionals as being healthy and happy. On the 23rd of March, an adoption panel approved his adoption by the Monster Dads. Anyway, we know what happened. We've been through it so many times. I don't want to go through all those things again. Just want to see what they say at the bottom. There it goes into the. It's got all the victim impact statement and everything, but we have been through them. So, really, what I'd like to see are some maybe videos of the biological father speaking, Gary or Sarah, or even the foster pet. You know, would like to see what somebody's got to say about this. Hi, Kelly. Whole life order in 25 years. Yeah, and will he make it to 25 years though, David? Is he going to survive 25 years in prison after his RAPED to baby? Is he actually going to make it? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? So 25 divided by 3, which I don't know how to work out, but I suppose it's, where's my calculator? Somebody tell me what 25 divided by 3 is and times it by 2. What is 2/3 of 25 years? It's 18 years, more or less, is it? So, 8. Oh, yeah, so 2 times that by 2, so it's 2/3. For 16 years, it's nothing, is it, really? You know, I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not much. David's saying 13. I don't think it's 13. Look, you're all as bad at me as working out. If you divide 25 by 3, I have to Google it. I'm glad it's 16. Yeah, just this is the devil's number, isn't it? The devil's number. So Louise is asking, can the family apply to block Christie's, you know, because he looks like John Christie from 10 Rillington Place? I don't think they can. I don't know. I mean, listen, both Varley and Christie, they're going to appeal, aren't they? I would imagine. They'll go through all the appeals. They'll go through all the appeal system, I would imagine. I don't think they're just going to accept it. Certainly not bloody Jamie Varley. He won't accept it. He'd be like, Mom, can you please appeal for me? Mom. Well, I wonder if his mum will even want to know him. I wouldn't want to know him after he'd been found guilty of this. Much as, you know, it might be my son or whatever. How could you look at him in the face? When that very same day that he sex abused Preston twice, apparently on that last day, and you know, and Preston died on that very same day. The GMA had been dangling him on her knee and singing "Clap Handy's Daddy Comes." So how could you forgive him? How could you forgive him? You know, it was ostensibly a grandson, you know. She'd been engaged in looking after him. She was getting to know him. Apparently he was reacting normally with him. That's what Dr. Gifford said, didn't it, when she saw the video of Preston being dangled on his GMA's knee and her singing that song to him. He said that she said that Preston was reacting normally, whereas when Preston was reacting to Varley, and I don't know, I'm not going to show it now, I'm not going to show any more videos of Preston's abuse. But if you saw that video of Preston, you know, when he accidentally pulled his toy on top of him, and he wanted to cry, but he was looking at Jamie Varley. He knew he wasn't going to get it. He was scared of him. You could see it in his face. And that video when he was trying to fall asleep and Varley was shouting boo and making him stay awake. And when Jamie was Preston was sort of trying to smile, but he was so tired he couldn't. But also he's very wary of Varley. You could see it. And Dr. Gifford described it, didn't she, as frozen watchfulness. Preston, he might only have been 13 months old, but he was looking at Varley. He knew that Varley would not offer him comfort. Even then, just after a couple of months with him, he had learned that. He had learned Varley is not his protector. He's not going to help him. And he stopped smiling, hadn't he? Yeah. He'd stopped smiling. You know, all his smiles had gone. Yeah, Preston looked in that video, the boo video. He sort of looked at him and he sort of tried to smile like that, didn't he? But he was so tired, and also he was scared. You could see that he was scared. But who could he turn to? He could not turn to he had nobody to turn to, because, well, he couldn't make himself understood, is he? Because, you know, if he would have been older, maybe he could have said to even his GMA or to someone, you know, I don't want to be with it. I'm sure if he would have said he didn't want to be with Varley, you know, if he was old enough to say that. And, you know, I've struggled so much with this case, as you know, because I just feel like God turned his face away from this little boy. Honestly, I think about it all the time. I think, how could God turn away from him when he needed him? But do you know what? I think God did take him away in the end. Because if Preston would not have died that day, would anyone even still know? Would it all still be going on? Would he be, would he have ever would he ever have been free of these two? Because as he got older, he would have just thought, this is what happens to all kids. You know, he wouldn't have, kids that suffer from this terrible abuse, in the end, that's all they know, isn't it? Yeah, I think you're right, David. I think even as we speak, depending what prison, I wonder which prison they'll go to. We don't know yet. But yeah, people will be talking about it already. People in the prison, because the thing is, the prison communities, they might be in prison, but they get to know what's going on, don't they? I think the guards have a lot to do with it sometimes. They turn a blind eye, don't they? Maybe tell some of the prisoners, oh, who's coming here tomorrow. This guy, you know what he did? He murdered a baby and he RAPD'd him and this, that and the other. I think the prison guards sort of set up a lot of it, don't they? I expect. Yeah. Looking forward to a live on the first attack. And you can't help but feel that way, can you? Because it's just so horrible what's happened to this little boy. How can you not, almost want something to happen to them? And, I try not to, but I can't. Do you know what? Varley, I cannot, well, both of them, I can't, there's nothing that would make, if we heard tomorrow that they'd been attacked in prison and killed, we wouldn't shed a tear for them, would we? You couldn't, like when Ian Huntley was murdered recently in prison. You can't feel sorry for him. I felt a bit sorry for his mum. I feel sorry for, that, but how could you feel sorry for Ian Huntley after what he did to those girls? Having said that, I don't agree with it. I don't believe it's the right thing to do. But yeah, you wouldn't shed a tear, would you? And I think Varley's even worse than Ian Huntley. Because someone like Ian Huntley, he killed two children. But he wasn't supposed to be their caregiver. You're talking about a man who's supposed to be a teacher. He wanted to adopt this baby. The baby was put in his care and his trust. So there's really, when you think about it, a whole life order is exact perfect, isn't it? Couldn't be any other sentence, really. And I don't believe in the death penalty, so I don't believe in that. And I'm glad we haven't got the death penalty. But, there's other sorts of death penalties. I'm sure he's perfectly aware what is going to happen to him or might happen to him in prison. He's the worst of the worst. They are going to be like, there'll be as I say, I won't be showing their photos after today, but if you look at them, this photo, or these two photos, this is like Hindley and Brady, Rose West, Fred West. These images are going to go down in British history as one of the worst crimes ever. And these two mugshots, so these were their mugshots just after they were finally arrested. This is going to be like one of those iconic photos like Hindley and Brady, isn't it, eventually? And if something happens to them in prison, it will become even more so. Yeah, I agree, Louise. For some reason, John GF actually chills me more than Jamie Varley does. I know Jamie Varley did. Well, Jamie Varley's been found guilty of the worst offences. But I think John GF, I don't know, he's probably done exactly the same things, apart from the actual fine things on the final day. But he's just lucky he wasn't actually there at the house when the little Preston died, because I think he's just as evil, just as guilty. And in fact, I think he's even more so because he's very calm, isn't he? He's just very calm and talk, whereas Varley's just this bloody histrionic drama queen. Evil people, very evil people. Look, do you know what? I'm sure there'll be interviews going on and this, that, and the other. Let's have a look. But do you know what? I think I'm going to leave it now because it's a good result. Whole life tariff. Just hope that he is, being pampered. Says he ran out of the dock. So apparently, according to this guy that I follow on X, on Twitter, after the judge gave the sentence, Varley ran to the exit. He ran to the exit, did he? Well, he can run, but he cannot hide. That's for sure. He ran to the. Surprised he didn't just vomit all over the judge or something. Likes to have a good vomit, doesn't he? But we'll make a video. So sort of, honestly, this whole case makes you speechless, doesn't it? Let's get Preston up there. This whole case makes you speechless. Just the whole thing, not only, what's happened, but then Preston's backstory. Little Preston never stood a chance. But I'll tell you what, I hope he's being loved, cosseted, cuddled, wherever he is now. He's got to be in a better place, certainly a better place than he was in with those two twats. But, wonder why he couldn't stay with, I suppose the foster parents couldn't keep him, but, and they'll go back, in hindsight. I just feel for those foster parents. We heard their victim impact statement. They feel guilty all the time. They can't stop thinking about Preston. Sandra said she would be dreaming about him. Well, do you know what? He may be coming and visiting her in her dreams. Maybe he's trying to tell her that he's okay now. I hope he is. Bless him. A little bit. I mean, it's just. God, there are demons in this world, that's for sure. How you could look at that little face and hurt it, even consider hurting it. How could you? How could you? It's just impossible, isn't it? Oh, Jacqueline, that's so sweet. So Jacqueline's saying her sister's in heaven, he'll be looked after. Yeah, that's it. You hope that, don't you? I was thinking that thing, who would look after him in heaven? But there's loads of people there at the end of the day. And in heaven, it won't be like he had to put up with here. And yeah, the only solace I can get from the fact that Preston had his life robbed from him is that if he hadn't have died that day, would he still be being abused now? Would these two twats ever have been found out? How awful is that you have to think, well, it's better than him going through another 2 years of abuse or whatever. How awful is that? That's the only solace you can take. And maybe, they're already talking, aren't they, about lessons learned, and they're having investigations. And will something actually come of it, though? I don't know. That's true, Louise. I think Preston's foster mum has a direct line to his spirit, yeah. Because you know what, I mean, even though I know his biological mum, I'm sure she loved him, but he didn't spend that much time with her. His biological dad never met him, sadly. But his foster parents, they spent 11 months with Preston and gave him love. And he was this beautiful, healthy, happy baby. So they will be very connected to him. So when his foster mum said she wakes up sometimes and she's dreaming about him, and then she has to remember all over again what's happened to him, maybe that is Preston trying to connect with her, maybe. If you believe in those kind of things, which I do believe in, Preston, trying to give her a cuddle or trying to tell her he's okay, or I don't know. We've got to believe it. I've got to believe it, because if not, I would go absolutely loopy over this case. Literally would. I have to believe that Preston now is safe, happy, no more fear, doesn't have to wake up every morning not knowing what's going to happen to him. And yeah, he will try and contact his foster parents. Maybe he will come through to them. You just don't know. Now, one thing, because we heard the foster parents saying like they were about to retire, weren't they? They retired. Preston was supposed to be their last baby or their last foster child. But because of what happened to Preston, 3 siblings came up as who needed foster parents, 3 children, and they took them on. They've took them on. So those 3 children are lucky now that they've got Preston's foster parents, which they wouldn't have had because they were retired. So they could have ended up with somebody like Varley and GF. So that's something. Do you know, there's some, you know, you can't believe what happens, you know, here in Spain, like in the care homes and things like that. There's one not far from where I am, and a lot of myself and a lot of my friends, we've done a lot of charity work for them. They take them round, it's a children's home. They take round, you know, Christmas presents, and they're all ages, all different ages. And there were, I don't know if it was 2 or 3, but 2 just found walking along the road that nobody knows where they ever came from. 2 little kids. Maybe they were gypsies, I don't know, but I can't believe that 2, you know, just like a dog wandering, or, you know, like lost dogs get found. These children were found just walking up the road. Nobody knows where they came from or anything about them. Imagine that. You can't believe that could happen in a modern country, would you? You know, in this day and age, where did those children come from? You just can't believe it, some of the things that happen in the world. Did their parents just tell them to go away, or did their parents die? Maybe their parents were addicts and died, you know, these sort of things that just, yeah. No, it's hard to take in sometimes, isn't it? Hey Kelly, yeah, you've just woken up, I suppose. But yeah, so it's good news. It's good news in a very grim. This has been a grim case, isn't it? And but we will carry on talking about Preston. But I will never talk about those men again. I will never show their face. I will never speak their names. I hope they rot in prison. I hope that GF doesn't get a chance to come out of prison. In fact, I've got to think of new names for them. So they'll be like, you know, Monster 1 and Monster 2, you know, from Monsters Inc. They're not, I don't want to say their names. And we know at least that Monster 1 isn't coming out ever. But Monster 2, I hope he never gets to the point where he's coming out of prison. I literally, I shouldn't say it's wicked, really. But that's what I hope, that he never sees freedom again. Okay, so I'm going to light the candle for Preston, I think. If I can find my lighter. I've never got any, I don't know. No, I can't, because I don't know where my lighter is. I'll have put it somewhere. Oh no, there it is. I'm going to light, I have got virtual candles up there, but let's have a proper candle for him. Now, I may actually have a couple of days off now because, you know, luckily for me, I can do that, you know, in the sense of when you think of Preston's family, you know, when we cover cases come to an end, if you like, and this has been at least good justice. And then we'll talk about other cases. But of course, Preston's family, you know, this is not just another case to them, is it? This is something they have to live with, the foster parents, etc., forever. You know, it's not a true crime case to them. Aye, right, can't get my lighter to work now. What's going on? There you go. So for Preston, God bless. You know what? I'm sorry this will let you down so much, but I hope wherever you are, you're being really cuddled, spoiled. I'm sure there's a lot of people up there in heaven. I think, when a beautiful baby like Preston arrives there in heaven, people be queuing up to get a cuddle with him. That's how it should have been, of course, here as well. But anyway, there you go. Yeah, the dog, Kelly, there's rumours about all sorts of things. But anyway, let's not go into that. So, for Preston, and listen, thank you all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Thank you for being here with me through this horrible case, and I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you all.